Good afternoon. My name is David Andrew Jamison Jr. I am a QMed oiler with the Washington State Ferries. It's currently Sunday, April 5th, 2020. And I have been tracking and researching this COVID-19 virus situation, this whole pandemic, for the past, a little over 2 months. I was on my vacation coming out of January. I started looking at leaked footage on Twitter coming from Wuhan. I saw the authorities in China welding people up inside their apartments, barring them up inside their apartments so they couldn't leave. I saw people being dragged off by men in hazmat gear. I saw them establishing police roadblocks and dumping dirt on roads to try and block people from leaving Wuhan. I saw whistleblowers being gagged. I saw the PLA moving in with transport helicopters and cargo planes, with Army doctors. I saw hospital wards packed to overflowing with patients. I heard rumors of crematoriums operating at maximum capacity. And now we are hearing of tens of thousands of urns full of cremains being handed out at crematoriums in Wuhan and Hubei province. I saw the Chinese taking over college dormitories, stadiums, gymnasiums, public buildings, filling them full of beds for people with pneumonia. And I knew as far back as about February 8th that this virus would cause a global pandemic. It was spreading too fast in Wuhan, and with the Lunar New Year, you had tourists and revelers going all over the globe. It was unavoidable. It was unavoidable. It would become a pandemic. Unavoidable. But with the timing and everything around the holidays, it was unavoidable. Completely unavoidable. Numerous mainstream press outlets have come out in support of the leaked footage and the whistleblower reports from China. The New York Times, Time Magazine, Business Insider, The Guardian, all of them support the leaked footage and the leaked information coming out of China, as well as, and Barron's as well, pointed to the fact that the infections and death statistics in China had been fabricated. I'm sorry to say, but between 40 to 50,000 people died in Wuhan of COVID-19, and the rest of the world was not told, we were not warned about this. But that's just the first half of the problem. The other half is the nature of this virus itself. Something that I have studied in very, very great detail. I've spent hundreds of hours cross-referencing dozens of scientific papers, anecdotal reports from ICU doctors, leaked footage showing symptoms of this disease. And it's a lot worse. It's a lot worse than we're being told. COVID-19 is not just a form of pneumonia. It's not only is it not just the flu, it's not just pneumonia. Not even close. A little bit of background on my findings. First of all, I'm not a doctor. I'm not a scientist. I'm not a virologist or a biologist or any of these things, but I have been contacting those people. I have contacted multiple PhD biologists and virologists to try and get some confirmation of my findings. And I've combed over dozens and dozens of papers on SARS and on COVID-19. And I've come to a few rather disturbing conclusions. First of all, this virus uses something called angiotensin converting enzyme 2 as its entry receptor. Now, to some people, that's just gobbledygook. It doesn't mean anything. So I'm going to try and break it down to make it very, very simple for you. The human body has something called the angiotensin-renin-aldosterone system. It is a system that secretes hormones that manage your vasodilation, vasoconstriction, certain inflammatory processes, as well as the balance of the electrolytes in your body, your sodium-potassium balance. It has to do with, of course, your kidneys, your blood vessels, and your blood pressure. It regulates your blood pressure, and the electrolyte levels. So, what COVID-19 actually does is, as it uses up the ACE2 receptor on your cells, the hormone angiotensin 2, which would ordinarily convert to angiotensin 1,7 using angiotensin converting enzyme 2, ordinarily, angiotensin converting enzyme 2 downregulates the presence of the hormone angiotensin 2, right? So you don't get angiotensin 2 building up. What happens with this virus is, because this virus uses angiotensin converting enzyme 2 as its entry receptor, it uses up, it monopolizes all of these ACE2 receptors, and then angiotensin 2 can't find any to convert to angiotensin 1,7 and downregulate. So angiotensin 2 starts building up. Angiotensin 2 is pro-inflammatory and it's hypertensive. All right, it's a vasoconstrictor. So basically, what COVID-19 does, what SARS-CoV-2 and SARS-CoV share in common, is the vast majority of the damage that they cause is caused by the host response. This virus provokes a severe autoimmune reaction wherever it goes in your body. And this thing goes all over most of your vital organs. Most of your vital organs have ACE2 receptors that the virus can use as its entry receptor. And to put it bluntly, this virus can affect your lungs, heart, kidneys, liver, brain, blood vessels, the male reproductive system, all of them. All of them can be affected by this virus in very profound and surprising ways. There are reports of patients with myocarditis and pericarditis from the virus infecting their heart muscle, the myocardium. And there are reports of possible renal tubular injury and acute kidney injury. Not to mention the myoglobinemia from the heart muscle tissue breaking down into the bloodstream. and elevated troponin levels. You have high D-dimer levels because patients are having basically a whole lot of unexpected coagulation. Just their blood is just clotting all over the place because of the sepsis that this thing produces. It causes huge bacterial co-infections, cytokine storm within certain organs. It can cause acute respiratory distress and lung fibrosis on top of the pneumonia, with the bilateral viral pneumonia, with the patchy, the ground glass opacities visible on CT in both lungs. It can cause abnormalities of the testes. It can affect the seminiferous ducts of the testes, and then you have recovered patients who have abnormalities in testosterone and luteinizing hormone. So what that actually means is that basically it can cause male sterility. It could potentially cause vasculitis because blood vessels have ACE2 receptors as well. That's one thing to look at. Another thing to look at is whether or not it's causing pulmonary hypertension because of angiotensin II building up. But that's not, and of course, it can cause hypokalemia, low blood potassium. It can cause abnormal liver levels, your AST, ALT. It can cause low lymphocytes, low platelets, low white blood cells, and all these patients seem to have elevated ferritin levels, which could be indicative of liver trouble. Viral hepatitis. But that's not the most concerning part. All of that on its own is pretty bad, but there's one other thing that makes this virus exceptionally dangerous. It's highly neurotropic. It can enter through the olfactory bulb and go through the cribriform plate into the brain. And it can also ascend up the parasympathetic nerves of the lungs, into the vagus nerve, cranial nerve 10, and then from there it can go into the cardiorespiratory center of the medulla, right in your brain stem, and cause dysautonomia, seizure, collapse, abnormal posturing, and the fencing response. You see, I've seen leaked footage of COVID-19 victims going down on the ground. Their legs are extended out straight, extension of the legs. The legs are paired up, and their arms are being folded over their chest. That's called decorticate or decerebrate posturing, and they alternate back and forth. It's just like a drowning victim. It's a sign of severe brain damage. And then also they're showing, some of these patients are also showing, well, not patients yet, victims, I guess. They haven't even been diagnosed with anything. This just happens out of the blue, like sudden death. Like some of these people weren't even showing any symptoms before, and then all of a sudden they collapse on the ground, and then they even have the fencing response, where they have one of their arms is extended out straight from their chest. That's called the fencing response, and it's a sign of severe brainstem damage. Normally you see the fencing response in athletes who've been struck in the head. Some guy like a boxer gets hit in the head, or a footballer, and he goes down. Sometimes he'll show the fencing response because he's had a blow that has affected his brainstem. Well, this virus can affect the human brainstem. It can affect the human brainstem profoundly. It gets to the cardiorespiratory center of the brain, and it could potentially cause dysautonomia, depressed breathing. It could potentially be causing arrhythmias simply by the way it affects the brainstem and the vagus nerve.